All right. Okay, beautiful women. So welcome, welcome. Today we're here. This training call is all about perpetual prosperity and how do you actually end the famine cycles in your business. And it's actually called end the feast or famine cycles in your business because oftentimes there's this up and down with income at any level. Even people who have multi-million-dollar businesses still will go through this like wild swings. And how do we actually eliminate those wild swings? And so I'm so happy to have Briana here as our guest. And let me go ahead and just place her information here for you. Briana and I have been friends for years. When we both met, we were starving moms on food stamps, dealing with illness and children and the harsh realities of life. And we've both managed to build multiple six-figure businesses. Hey! And so Briana specializes in money. Like this is her passion. It's like what I see of Briana is that she has a commitment to all women living and leading prosperous, powerful, sustainable lives. And for women to be in charge of their own money and their own prosperity. And she's a phenomenal woman, a phenomenal friend. And she's one of those people I could always pick up the phone and just have a really real conversation about any part of my life. So she's just wonderful. I put her information here, her email, her beautiful website, and she has a gift for you, 7 profitability hacks, which she'll also be telling you about. And I'll include that on the Wisdom Vault page as well. So let's just take a moment to send warm kisses to Briana Cavanaugh. Mwah. Blowing Briana Cavanaugh warm kisses. Debbie and Marcia. There we go. And welcome, Briana. Thank you so much for being here. I'm going to spotlight your video.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. As Jessica was saying, I love talking about money. One of my highest values is freedom. And I believe that bringing more freedom into our lives brings us more choice. And one of the main areas for us to be working in around that is money, because it's both a very powerful force and a place that that I feel like doesn't get enough attention, like gets kind of a bad rap, you know? When women are in business when women are in business, we're often like, okay, we want to make money, but we sort of like put that at like almost like on the down low. We're like, okay, but I'm really going to make an impact, right? And when we're not taking good care of our money, it's we're not taking really good care of ourselves and our businesses. All of these things all fit together. So I am here to share with you, like transmit my values, especially freedom and integrity and joy. And let's see, and I want to talk about, and one more, which is sufficiency or enoughness. Like there's a big conversation about prosperity, but in the financial feast or famine cycle, which we're about to talk about, one of the things I want you to have an eye on in the conversation is sufficiency, is enoughness. Like where is the point at which you get to rest, right? And step out of the pushing, burnout, rushing, masculine operating system that we can get into around business. So that's kind of the thing that I want you to kind of hold your attention on as we're having this conversation. So the question I often like to start with is, does anyone here want to make more money? Yeah? Cool, excellent, you're in the right place. Awesome, okay. And do you want to actually make more money while having that bigger impact? Yes? Yeah. Okay. And then when you think about having more money, you can unmute yourself and tell me what do you, if you had more money, what would you do with it? Like, what do you have something in mind that you're like, if I had more money, I would shout it out. Unmute yourselves.
Well, I'll go first. I love how Connie Viveros, who's one of the mastermind members, she, over the last 10 years, has built schools in Uganda for 10,000 girls, where previously those girls would kind of end school after elementary school. And now many of them have, for the first time in that culture, going to college. And I feel like that's the kind of impact I want to have. I do give to her foundation, but in like a small way. Mm-hmm. And I'd like to actually be able to give, you know, I'd love to be able to write that $10,000 check or that, or more, you know, that's exciting to me. That would feel fulfilling in my, like in my body, in my heart.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Who else?
I would like to get help in growing or starting my business and growing my business. It's been an idea and some learning and stuff for many years while working, but I want to do it now, and I feel like doing it all alone, I'm kind of lost. I'd love to get like VA help with the emails and content and those kinds of things.
So you need some support and some like community. There's a great book called The General Theory of Love, which talks about limbic resonance and getting into community so that you have the support, like the nervous system support to be able to get to that next level. So you're actually in the right place, Bridget, with Jessica, shifting that limbic resonance, your nervous system, so you can have more support. So this is a great place to do that. Excellent. Who else?
When I have more money, I really want to have my retreat healing center someplace. I have a beautiful place in Berkeley now for my center, but my goal is to really have a whole big piece of property. Maybe I should go the one that Jessica was talking about, but I want to have that whole healing center where people come from all over, and there's all different modalities of healers there. That's what I will do.
So you have a dream around transmitting healing, both like through yourself and through other people, and having this big space and making a bigger impact.
Yes, I want to have a healing center where people come for healings, but also all the different practitioners are able to share all their gifts and also prosper while they're there. I want a place where everybody can prosper and be healed.
Nice.
Using all the different modalities.
And it takes money to do that, right?
It does take money to do
that.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Thank you.
I think I'm still in the process of unhooking that making more money means more work. And so I haven't quite unhooked that. So at the moment, my answer was, I don't want to make any more money because making more money means more work. And so I know this is part of what we're talking about, but I'm right in that process. So I haven't quite figured out what it would be if I had more money, although it would be, something with generosity has been happening as I've been building more money, and a little bit more time for probably a little bit more leisure time, which I'm also in the middle of working on, being a mom and full-time business person. So, yeah.
So that thing that you're saying about you don't want to make more money because it would mean more work, that's one that I definitely resonate with, because that's one that I have struggled with too. It's like, oh, if I'm going to make more money, I'm going to have to work harder, and that might mean burnout, or that might be health issues, or less time with my family. The consequences of working harder and the toll of that is a great reason to hanging on to that is a great reason not to make more money, right? Yeah. So what you're pointing to is a really important point, and that point is about the inner game around money, which is something we're going to talk about a bit. But the way that you think about money really matters, right? What you're holding, how you're processing it, and then the outer game, like the actions that you're actually taking about that. And I don't know how many of you have heard that before. There's an inner game and an outer game to money. Yeah. Just a couple of you, one of you. Okay, great. A couple of you. Great. So a lot of what goes on with money, so is in your head, really. It's like, oh, I can't do that. I can't do this. I can have that, or I can only have this, has to do with what goes on in your mind and your thinking brain. And that's affected by your neurobiology, and that will have you, and that neurobiology will have you do or not do certain things. Yeah, thank you. Is there anyone else that wants to share what they would like to get up to?
Yeah, I'll pop in here.
Awesome.
I want to be making more than enough to just cover basic needs. And in particular, I'm thinking I need to be able to pay practitioners to put their hands on my body and to, 2 massages a week, man. I'm so envious. Good for you. And more.
Excellent. So,
and can I say one more thing?
Yeah, please.
And then have the money to be able to go globally and bring my message of disrupting the myth of self-sabotage, even to communities and groups that may not be able to afford my rates otherwise.
That's awesome. I love it. So I want to introduce you to the idea of something I call friendly cannibalism, which is that it's great to take what's going on with other people and have it for yourself, right? And just like gobble it up. I mean, like, I want that. Your desire and your imagination of what you can have. Again, all of the stuff that's in your head is one of the things that will drive you to actually have it. So I want that for you. I want you to take it and have it and use that as one of your wishes. That's great. I think I feel like that's what we should be doing. Okay, so what we're going to do in this session, I just want to get a sense of like what you're up to and what you want, and make sure I'm on the same page with you guys. And so thank you for giving me your like dreams and your desires, and I really appreciate that very much. So what we're going to do on this call is we're going to identify, we're going to really look at your financial feast or famine cycle. And then I'm going to give you a couple of, we have an hour. I think we have a half an hour from now, just about. And so I'm going to give you a couple of things, a couple of pieces of information and things that you can do. And then I'm going to give you a way, in fact, that link to get more information. On my website, you can get this thing called 7 Profitability Hacks. That website is all about the outer game and about taking action and getting support around taking action. And we're in the process of redoing the Bliss for Money site, which is all about the inner game. And I'm writing more stuff on neurobiology. So exciting. And so that's going to be up in the next few weeks, because my web designer is working on it right now, which is fantastic. All right, so the financial feast or famine cycle itself is something that a lot of people, you might already know about this, right? You're like, one day you're like, woo, I'm so pumped, I'm gonna do a thing, I'm ready to go, and you like make your plan and you attempt to hire people, or you do hire people, and you're like, I'm gonna do my marketing and admin work, and I'm gonna get a bunch of clients, and I'm gonna go paleo and vegan and raw and get married this year and have a baby and light the world on fire, and you're like, woohoo! Maybe you already see the problem in this long list to-do list, but you're like, woo, let's go, right? You get super inspired. Maybe you go to a workshop or a thing, and then you start working, and you work and work and work and work and work and work and work, and it works, right? Like, clients come in, all of this stuff happens, and it's really super great for a while, right? Like, it's really super great for a small amount of time, and at some point, the whole thing sort of tips over, and a few weeks later, or a few days, or a few months, or maybe a few years later, you find yourself sitting, on a big chair, naked, eating Cheetos and watching Netflix, right? Like, this is it. Not leaving the house. This is not a thing. And then, the longer you watch Netflix and eat Cheetos, the less you feel like working, and the money goes down and down and down, and then you have kind of a crash and burn. And if you do it enough, maybe you start to recognize a little bit, oh, this is taking me up, or you get jaded. You're like, oh, if I get inspired, oh, I can't do anymore. So I'm not going to get inspired. I'm not going to go to those events. I'm just going to, and your life gets kind of smaller and smaller and smaller, and you have less and less capacity for inspiration and joy. And, eventually it's very small and you're very tired. And that's a huge bummer. And that ends up meaning that you don't get your love and your joy and your mission, your calling, right, out into the world. And I know because I have done this myself, right? Like Jessica said, when I came to the work, I was burned out, single mom. I was very sick. I had been in the hospital. In fact, the way that I got to doing this work was that I was in the hospital and on welfare and trying to figure out what the hell, because I had worked in tech and I had done all this stuff, and why the hell was I like sick and in the hospital, and like I had done all the right things, right? I had worked really hard, right? Like American Dream says, work really hard. And I did that, right? And it sucked. And so what I began to do was unfold and unlock the different pieces of like, why does this suck so much? Why am I so sick? And the being sick was a huge wake up call for me. I know, Jessica, you were recently talking on the one of the Facebook groups about this as like illness as initiation. So I don't remember who. Let's see if I can see your face, Ariana. Where you were talking about not wanting to make more money because it would mean more work. That what you're doing is like you're on a what's it called? It's like a money, you're at a money initiation, right? So each of these pieces of the financial feast or famine cycle has its own like initiation, and therefore it also has its own gifts, right? We look at this cycle and we're like, the up cycle looks really rad and the down cycle looks really crappy, right? But there's reasons, there are actually really good reasons that this happens. And so the first thing that I want to give to you is the idea that what you have been doing around money, you have had a very good reason for, okay? And that starts to, if you can take that in and be like, oh, right, I've had a good reason for this. Maybe I don't have enough information. Maybe I don't have enough support. Maybe I don't have enough accountability. And maybe I don't understand the way that my brain or money works in order to be able to make the changes that I need to make to do something different. Okay. So the first thing is really about like forgiving yourself for doing all the crap that you've done. Because if you're stuck in this place where you're like, that cycle really sucks, right? That cycle really sucks and I don't want to do that anymore. You end up in kind of a trap, right? That's the sort of trap of the cycle. You're like, oh, I finally see it and I'm not going to do that anymore. And the reason I'm telling you this is because what I want us to do as our little, our exercise is to start to look at what is our financial feast or famine cycle. And so this is a little bit of a warning, being like, okay, we're going to look at the financial feast or famine cycle, but I want you to not drop into despair as you start to write down the things that have triggered your cycle, because that's the next thing we're going to do. You're going to write down what triggers the up, what triggers the down, right? And I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to do that. And I just want you to remember that the reason you've been doing these things is because you have a very good reason for them. You're not bad. There's nothing wrong with you. Okay? Make sense? Nod your head if you get me. Okay. So I want you to just take a minute and close your eyes and think back about maybe the last time, or maybe run through the last couple of times that you've had this up and down cycle. And I want you to take a couple minutes and write down what it is that has triggered the ups, what triggers the downs, and anything else you notice. If you're like, oh, I'm not sure, that's totally fine. Write down what happens in that cycle. I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to do that.
And are you specifically thinking of, it has to be money, or does it have to be amount of work done, or the kind of both together?
We're looking at money, but it's related to work. So work might be one of the things that triggers it. You're like, oh, I am working too much, and this triggers this real up and down cycle, right? And what causes you to work too much? Do you know what causes you to go into that work too much mode?
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, great. Does anybody else have questions? Okay, I'm setting a timer for like 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay. So in a minute, I'm going to let you share, but I want to give you some information about that cycle first. And this one that Jessica posted is perfect. So when you're looking at this, so Jessica says, what triggers the up? Invite women to my program, make a chunk of money. What triggers the down? Then spend that money immediately and not have another invitation or program available for months. Okay. And she said, but I solved this one. So I want to give you information about what's going on here. And then I'm going to have you take another look and then we'll share. So what's happening is the cycle goes up and the cycle goes down, right? And if you look at a map of how homeostasis works, which is the process that our bodies of coming back to center, continuing to come back to center, goes up and down, and then it comes kind of back towards the middle, except under a couple of circumstances. And so this is actually the behavior that we would expect from normal human brains. Yeah? Does that make sense? So because we are creatures that we are engaged in this homeostatic process, we would expect it to go up and to come down. The things that trigger, the things that will trigger you to act are without your kind of consent are called instincts, right? We have instincts, and our instincts produce tension, have us want to release the tension. Right? They compel us to want to release the tension. So if you get tension about money, you get tight about money, you'll want to do something about it, take some action to release the tension. And we get tensions, or like, at least to start out with 2 things. You want to know what they are? This totally blew my mind, by the way, when I figured this out. One of them is opportunity, and the other one is threat. They produce tension. And if you don't figure out how to release that tension, your instincts will have you release the tension. This is related to why people who win the lottery will spend all of their money. It actually is 3 things: the threat, opportunity, and then the other thing at play there is money set point, which means that if you're outside of your homeostatic range, it'll bring you back down, right? That's the set point piece. And it'll be prompted by an opportunity or a threat, right? The up will be the opportunity, usually not always. The down will be the threat. So if what happens is you have and you get all that money and you're outside of your range, you're going to want to spend it to bring yourself back down. Right? Does that make sense? There's neurobiology at play here. And I'm not going to go super deep into this because we just don't have time, but there are 5 stress circuits in the brain. Like basically if you counted them 1 to 5, joy would be at the top and very like dangerously stressed out would be at the bottom. So somewhere in here would be like a little bit stressed out, feeling good. I know I'm stressed out, right? But depending on where your money circuits are encoded will tell you when you behave in certain ways about money. And I was like, I have to tell you, when I learned that, I was blown away. I was like, oh, that makes so much sense about why I see these things with clients where they get into certain situations and then they act. Mm-hmm. Okay. So, yeah, Ariana.
Can I think I have an example of this.
Great. Yeah, that's what I was just going to look at him again. Great.
Is about 6 months ago, I went into a level that I had never been at before. And it's like, oh, I don't have to worry about money. Not that I have, money coming out my ears and, whatever. It's like, I'm not in that place of worrying anymore. I have enough and I have some extra. And I really could feel my whole being shifting and I didn't luckily spend it. I put it in some savings, but I have it sitting there and I just look at it. I'm like, wow, okay. So it's just very different. The kids' schools taking care of the household, whatever. And I was working with the homeostasis and I was like really feeling different and it brought up a lot of things. So is that what you're talking about? That's what it feels like.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. So when you look at that money, does it create any tension in you?
It did in the beginning, and now I'm just sitting there and I know I'm going to put more of it into the IRA, so that's where the tension goes.
Yeah.
But not
right, that's a release of tension. So you're going to put the money in there, and then you don't have to worry so much about it, right?
Yeah.
That's a really perfect example. That is a really perfect example. It's like until you so you're doing 2 things, right? You're working on your homeostasis level, right? You're working to expand it, right? And this is the comfort zone thing of like being willing to be uncomfortable, right? To move through. And then you're looking at how do you release tension in a way that really works, right? You're like, oh, this makes me tense. I don't know that this is your process, but you're like, okay, I'm going to put it away, right? And when you have the container of like values and goals and like your retirement goal, or you want to give money away, then when the money comes in, right, and you start to get tense, if you have that foundation of values and goals, you have a place to put the money, right, a place to direct the tension, and then you can release the tension and up your game. Does this make sense? Yeah. Okay. So what I want you to do is to look at what you just wrote, right? And I want you to look at it through this lens of tension and instinct. Does that make sense? And then I want you to just take a moment and see if there's anything that you can first forgive yourself for. If you're like, oh, hey, I get why I did that. Like, I'd love to hear that, because celebrating will actually also change your neurobiology. It'll give your brain like, oh, this is important. This is important. Woohoo! So I would love to hear some celebrations. And then the other piece is if you can identify the places where you're like, oh, I see that I have tension there. And then we're gonna shout them out. Does that make sense? So I'm just gonna give you a minute to go through your list. Is there anything you can now forgive yourself for, or that suddenly dropped off your list? You're like, oh, I get it. It's fine, right? And can you identify the places where you have, where you can see that you have tension? And just know that I don't see all of your faces all at once. So if you need to say something to me, just go ahead and shout it out. And that's totally okay with me. All right, I'll give you 2 minutes to work your list. And feel free to post in the chat. This is great. This is great stuff. Yeah, this is so great, you guys. There's about another 45 seconds. I'm going to, you can keep working on the list. I'm going to just read out a couple of these things. Instinct to buy, stock up on needed items right away when money comes in. Tension. Ariana says, I can forgive myself for pulling inward and slowing down when I'm over full or at or past capacity. Forgive myself for not siphoning money into containers, saving on a regular basis. Yeah. Debbie says, tension when I doubt myself and my worth. I'm loving it. Okay. Are you guys, it looks like most everybody has even said something in the chat. Are we, Bridget, are you good? Did you get something?
I do.
Yeah? Okay, great. So I want to pop over to Tara because you were posting about your feast was doing currently in my leadership training or some kind of transformational work. The challenge is to me to stretch, follow through on my plans with accountability, including nitty-gritty details, which are not as fun for me. Being a sales cycle, having a program to offer. So that's the feast, and the and what triggers the down is getting burned out, unsustainable energy for my blueprint and introvert self, travel or moves, being tapped out, and one-to-one work. What did you see? So what did you just learn in this exercise?
Well, for me, it was like seeing what the triggers are so that I can design my life in a different way. Like the feast, and, like I have some control over a lot of those things, including my business model, I can do things differently. Like I've done summits in a way that, were kind of intense and not super sustainable. So now I'm looking at how can you use a slightly different simplified model so it's much more sustainable. And I just want to do everything in my life more in that spirit. And I think there's also, like a seasonal aspect to it for me. There's certain times of the year when I have more energy and certain times when I don't. And I just need to accept that that's just kind of who I am and how I'm wired, and design my business too a bit around that. Like in the wintertime, I should not be in the launch. I do feel energy now of like spring and fall. I do feel more of that energy. So it's like working with that.
Nice. And did you learn anything about the tension piece? It sounds like you learned about the forgiveness piece, forgiving yourself for trying to do things out of your pattern, out of what's going to work for you.
Yeah, I don't know that I fully understood. So tension is like opportunity, threat, or money set point, right?
Really, we're looking at opportunity or threat. So the money set point is like the third thing, but the threat or the opportunities are the things that are usually going to cause tension.
Yeah, I mean, it seemed clear in mine, like all the feast stuff, those are opportunities, right? And everything that was, a threat was in the category of famine.
Yeah. So it's real clear, isn't it? That it's all about this tension.
Totally clear.
Yeah. Thank you. We're going to talk about what to do about tension in a minute. Don't worry, I'm not going to leave you hanging. Thank you. Does anyone else want to share what they found in the process?
Yeah, I'll say something.
Who is this? Let me find your...
Marcia.
Great. Hi, Marcia.
Sitting in my car in Orinda. Okay. Yeah, I mean, this came more clearly to me today in the last couple of minutes.
Mhm.
When external things show up that are challenging, so threatening, and I know there's always an internal component to what we attract, but just kind of setting that to the side. I have a really chronic tendency to interpret that as kind of a slide down into the usual pit and the morass of, oh man, here it goes again. I'm never going to be able to get out of the pit and that sort of thing. And then that exhausts me, makes me sick, demotivates me. And today I just found out some news that, so I'm really on the razor's edge right now.
Mhm.
I am going to reinterpret this in a way that's actually positive for me and offering up opportunities that would not have been possible had this cancellation not happened. So that's my tension and my chronic pattern. Is that kind of
Yes,
flowing into what you're saying? Okay, I might be
absolutely.
using different words. Okay.
It's great. So what you're saying is in the past, when you've had sort of opportunity or threat, in this case threat, a cancellation, you kind of slide down into your pattern, your brain pattern, and self-talk.
No, I'm saying that's the physiology of it, right? Oh, woe is me, and this is never going to change.
Or whatever your story is. There are different stories, but that's and what you're working to do is to reframe.
And really see it as an opportunity for something different than what I had thought was going to save me or provide for me or whatever.
Right. Being saved. This is another version of this, being saved. That's perfect. Thank you very much. So when we have tension, the question, like, we get these tensions, and then, what do we do about it? Then we're tense, we're worried, we want to take some action. Okay. So what do you do about tension? Right? That's the next question, right? You're like, it's so tense, opportunity, threat. I'm going to spend all the money. I'm going to, be miserable. So the first thing to do about threat or opportunity is notice that you're in that process, right? In order for you to take any action, you have to notice that you're running on instinct. Okay? So you'll be surprised when you start noticing the tension, how often it happens. We spend a lot of our life in human instinct. And then the shift is to, once you notice, you have more choice. So there's a version called human spirit, right? Or higher self, right? And then you can start to act from a place that's like, okay, I want to be in partnership. I want to have choice about what I do. I want to make decisions based on what I want, not what the tension wants, right? But the thing that you have to do is to notice when you get into tension and have tools to release tension, right? So as much as possible, if you can catch yourself, and when you catch yourself, you want to be like, woohoo! I caught myself. Look, I'm having an attack of human animal. I'm having a cave woman attack. It's terrible. How exciting, right? Can you do that with me? I just caught myself. Woohoo! Tension, woo! Okay? And then once you do that, you can figure out what to do next. And you want to do some things that are going to relieve tension. So you can actually do things that will help your body shift, like exercise is a really fantastic way. But in a moment, as soon as you notice it, you can take action. So I'm going to give you a mental model to work with. You have space, right? So I want you to take a breath and close your eyes. And actually, no, I'm going to show you something first. So you have if you imagine so if you're close your eyes, open your eyes. So if you imagine yourself in a like a terrarium, almost like if you ever saw Beauty and the Beast, where the rose is in that glass thing, right? It's sort of floating around. And if you imagine yourself like you have your own space, right, around you, Most of us, especially women, walk around with that space like, I can't see, so I can't really move. Right? I don't understand. So what you want to do is expand that space out. But I want you to notice is in that space at sort of the bottom back, there's a little door, right? And the thing about the door is it only opens from the inside. So you're actually the one that's collapsing your space. So when something pushes on you and there is tension, right, you are the one who's allowing your space to be collapsed, which means that you have the choice to just like mentally, emotionally push that space out, take a breath, and then decide what you want to do, what you actually want to do about this. Okay. And what helps here, so the three things I want to make sure I get across to you, one of them is identify the financial feast or famine cycle, which we've been working on. The second one is this conversation about inner game. And then the third one is outer game. So in order to expand and actually be able to do something useful with that tension, often when we get in a place of instinct, we have to have made decisions or plans from that higher space, that higher self, from our spiritual grounded higher self, in order to actually take action that's at choice for us. Which is why people are like, know your values, have goals, have a plan, right? And when you work this outer game of I know what my values are. Remember I said at the beginning, one of my highest values is freedom. I know what my values are. So when I'm like, oh, I got a bunch of money, I don't just have to spend it all, right? Right? I can put it in my vacation fund and be like, I want freedom, right? Know your numbers so you know when you're going to be in that up and down, right? And know what your goals are. Where is it that you actually want to go, right? If you don't know what your financial goals are and what does it take to get you to sufficiency, what does it take to get you above that into profitability, right? If you don't know those metrics and your profitability numbers, it's just not going to happen, right? Because you're going to be running on instinct, right? And your instinct is going to tell you spend money. Your instinct is going to tell you, go back down into your hidey hole. Right? And that's not at all in any way what we want. We want you to be able to act from a place of freedom and integrity. And if you're acting, remember those 5 things where it's like joy is up here, right? And massive stress is down here. If you're acting down here, you don't actually have access. So you have to bump yourself back up, right? Which is part of this conversation that Jessica and I have about joy and pleasure, right? You have to change your brain state. You have to notice that you're down here and do some shifting around so that you can actually act from a place of freedom and wholeness and integrity and joy and pleasure and like that. Does that make sense? Yes.
I want to just add something to that when you're in your joy and pleasure, not in a fake, like, rah, 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 I'm happy, but like in an authentic way, that is an attractor. That is a piece of your magnetism. And if you're mired down in your stress and your anxiety, it's not inspiring to others. Not that you can't go there. Like this whole saying, bring your mess to your mentor. Have places in your life where you can be messy. Yes. But then when you're out there in the world, like what I hear you saying, Briana, is have practices in place to enter into the world as a deeply centered woman who's in your joy and your value and your bliss when you're interacting with your clients or out there networking or giving a talk, because that is magnetic and expansive.
It's magnetic. It will change your relationship with money. It will change your relationship with your business, right? Like joy, we're finding out in the neurobiology that joy is critical to being able to make great decisions and be able to change our relationship with our brain and the sort of trash talk we do on ourselves, right, is directly affected by how much joy and pleasure that we give ourselves. So what I tell my clients is, if you're having an attack of instinct, figure out how to get yourself some pleasure. Go outside, take a breath, go for a walk. And so what I'm going to encourage you guys to do is make your joy list. What gives you joy? And carry it around with you. So you're like, I'm having an attack. I don't know what to do. Then you do know what to do. You don't have to think about it, right? You don't have to try to get out of that lizard brain, right? You just need to go and look in your wallet and say, oh, right, I can go for a walk. I would love a piece of chocolate. Oh, roses are so beautiful and I love the way they smell, right? And it doesn't have to be giant expensive things. It can just be, what are your list of 10 things you can do right now that'll help you change your brain, right? So there are these inner game and outer game things that work together. And the inner game is a really, 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 really critical piece. So that's most of what we've been talking about is, in the up and down is that you have to work both, right? You have to work your neurobiology, and then you have to work your outer game, which is a lot of the way that I came to my work is that, you have to do both of these things. And I noticed that we're getting close to time. So I just
wanted to quickly say something that you said, Briana, a few years ago. It's probably been more than a few years now, that completely changed my life, and it's related to all of this. That you said, well, Jessica, you have to engage when you have a huge win or a huge success. You have to take care of yourself to the same degree of self-care as you do when you have a flu or you're in deep grief.
That's right.
Because if you don't, you receive all this money or you have this big win or this big success, you'll actually, because of what you're talking about, kind of the tension, threat, opportunity, threat, tension, you'll self-sabotage. You'll actually go into the same patterns as you would when you're deep in stress and contraction. And I really took that on, and really, when I receive a lot of money or have some big win in my life, I take a priestess bath, I go for a walk, I take a nap. Because I used to suffer from I don't know if Briana, if you called this or if I called it this, the success flu. I would actually get sick when I had experiences of success. Mm-hmm. And I don't grapple with that as much anymore because I was able to change my physiology and expand my capacity to receive. But it was all through joy, self-care, pleasure, meditations, walking in nature, dance.
Yeah, that's right. And it was Ariana, right, that we were talking to at the beginning about that, the mindset thing that you're working on. This would actually be my prescription for you, is to do a lot of work around finding pleasure for yourself, understanding what that is, and just every day giving yourself some pleasure and joy.
Yeah, I do. And that's why I'm basically almost taking out the month of July. So I'm on you. So thank you. Yeah.
Awesome. Great job. So I want to just really quick give you next steps. So I'm so excited about the neurobiology stuff. I've been getting a little caught up in it. So there's a couple of things. So on the Bliss Your Bookkeeping site, there's the 7 profitability hacks. That is outer game stuff that talks about how the logistics of getting and staying profitable. And I think Jessica's put that in there. Yeah. So that will also get you on my email list. And so I'll communicate with you. We are running a class in the fall. There's, there's lots of stuff going on. But I do 2 things, right? I run a bookkeeping firm, so we help people actually get profitable, right? We help people figure out where is that point to go from to enough. And then we help you work a plan to get there. And then we do classes and coaching. So classes on mindset, classes on, how to run QuickBooks, all of that kind of stuff. So this will get you the 7 profitability hacks. And then when the notes for this talk, because I'm adding a bunch of the neurobiology in here, come out in a couple of weeks, you'll also get that via email. If you want the notes from this talk and a much deeper, there are 10 things on the list. There's a lot of stuff in there. If you want to play with that, go to blissyourbookkeeping.com and fill out the little form and you'll get all the things. And right now, I'm not actually sending very much out. I think if you're here at the top of the call, I was in a car accident 2 months ago, so I'm actually only working 4 hours a week or so. And in the next couple of months, we'll be turning things a little bit more back on. So the reason I'm telling you that is because we're not sending very many emails. So if you're one of those people that's like, oh my God, too many emails, we're actually the perfect place to be right now, because we're just doing little tiny bits of stuff to help people just real strategically move forward with these really specific 2 pieces of things. Do you have any questions about that? And again, I can't see you all, so you could just shout it out. So we'd love to have you. Oh, and the last thing I would say is we also have a Facebook group. So if you hop in with us, and I'm starting to do regular Facebook Live. So I'll be talking about this neurobiology in more detail coming up. How's that? That's great.
Briana, I just want to thank you so much. It's really striking me. You know, I have a business. I just hit multiple 6 figures, girl. Hey.
Woo-hoo!
But I only work 3-4 days a week, part-time days. And I'm just really recognizing in this moment how much some of the wisdom you gave me not that long ago, really a few years ago, is what has allowed me to be profitable and in a relaxed, sustainable way. I think I've always seen that, but I'm like, I'm really getting it now, how foundational you were saying a lot of these same things that you said today, and just really taking those on. So I'm just really in appreciation for you, Briana, for the true impact you've had on my life, and how blessed I am to have you as a sister. And I also just wanted to say, oh shoot, Ariana hopped off. That's a bummer, because Debbie and Bridget, I don't think you've done your one-on-one call with me yet. And I'm a master at helping women create a business that's profitable, and actually helping you create a business plan that you can then use in this mastermind that is sustainable and spacious. And what I love that Briana does is this whole other piece. She's also masterful at helping you create a spacious business plan. She's wonderful at that. And really looking at the numbers and really holding space too, for sometimes the shadow comes up when we look at our numbers and when we look at our goals. And like Ariana was saying, kind of some of the fear of like, what does that mean? Does that mean I'm going to run around like a chicken with my head cut off? So Briana holds just a beautiful infinite space to just really be in that conversation and to work through that conversation. But I'm also here too, as part of your mastermind program, is to do your calls with me. So Debbie and Bridget, get in there. And I was going to tell Ariana as well, because she hasn't done a call with me. So
I'm scheduled.
Oh, you are? Okay, good. Okay, great. Great. Awesome.
Thank you for having me, you guys.
Any questions for Briana? Just for the last minute or so here.
Just a big thank you from Marcia. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Awesome. Great. So I posted the link to Briana's website. When we end this call, all the links, our whole chat is going to go away. Like when I close it, it'll just disappear. So I would, even if you don't have time to like really look deeply into it now, go ahead and click the link just so it's open in your browser. I will also post it with the recording of this call in the Wisdom Vault, but sometimes it takes me a few weeks to put the calls up. So you can just click it now, save it for later. So nice to be with you, ladies. Let's just take a moment to complete our time together. We'll just complete with a final meditation breath, just in a moment, just dropping into gratitude and spaciousness right here in this moment. And perhaps an intention or prayer to bring gratitude and spaciousness forward into your spring and into your summer, into your money, into your entrepreneurial endeavors, into your life, your relationships, your friendships. And let's just end by just taking a deep breath in and out. Thank you, goddesses. It's always such a pleasure to be here with you. Thank you, Briana, for your time and your wisdom.